Okay, let's unpack a moment in history that really proves the pen is mightier than the sword.
Absolutely.
Because when you think about winning the American Revolution, your mind probably goes to battles, right? Maybe General Washington crossing the Delaware.
Or the big dramatic reading of the Declaration of Independence.
But here's the surprise. A huge part of the fight, maybe the most important part, was actually won by a tiny, cheap book.
Written by a guy who had been fired from his government job. Not once, but twice.
And that's our focus today. We're getting into Thomas Paine and his pamphlet, Common Sense.
Our mission here is to figure out exactly how this one document managed to take this, radical, terrifying idea of breaking away from the world's biggest empire.
And make it sound like the most obvious, simple choice.
The only choice, really. It was basically intellectual ammunition for the people.
What's so interesting about Paine is that he was the ultimate underdog. I mean, he was born in England in 1737, and his early life was just failure after failure.
It's true. He was supposed to make corset stays, like his father.
Aw.
He failed at that.
Tried being a teacher, failed at that. Then he gets a job as a tax collector for the British government.
And that's the ironic part. He's working for the very system he's about to tear apart. But those failures were actually really formative for him.
How so?
Well, getting fired twice as a tax collector meant he really understood the struggles of ordinary working-class people. He knew what it felt like to be ignored by the powerful. He didn't go to some fancy university.
His education was the street.
Exactly. And then the big turning point comes when he meets Benjamin Franklin in London. Franklin sees something in him, this sharp mind.
And tells him to go to America.
Yep. Paine lands in Philadelphia in late 1774, and the timing is just perfect. The colonies are at a boiling point.
And he discovers he has this one incredible talent.
Journalism.
Yeah.
He could take these huge, complex political ideas and just break them down so clearly that anyone, a farmer, a shopkeeper, could get it instantly.
He was the perfect man at the perfect time.
So to really get the impact of common sense, you have to understand what the colonies were like in 1775.
Yeah.
People were furious.
Right. They were protesting all the taxes from Britain, the tax on tea, the tax on stamps, all these laws they felt were unfair.
And they felt completely ignored. The big slogan was, no taxation without representation.
Meaning they were being forced to pay taxes by a parliament thousands of miles away where they had zero representatives.
Right. The British said Parliament represented all British subjects, but that just didn't fly with the colonists.
But here's the crucial thing that I think gets lost sometimes. Even with all the protests, even with fighting starting, most colonists were not trying to leave the empire.
No, not at all. They saw themselves as loyal British subjects. They just wanted better treatment. They wanted reform within the system.
The idea of a total break was terrifying to them.
It was. For generations, the king was this central figure, a symbol of their identity and their security. To just declare war on him and cut ties with the most powerful empire on earth, that was a huge psychological leap.
So they were hoping for reconciliation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, in January 1776, common sense drops right into the middle of this debate.
And the style of it was as revolutionary as the ideas.
Oh, absolutely. Political writing back then was so dense and formal. It was full of Latin phrases, and it was really only written for other wealthy, educated men.
It was designed to keep regular people out.
Paine just demolished that. He wrote in plain, fiery English. He used analogies anyone could get.
Like comparing Britain to a mother bird eating its own young.
Yeah. He wasn't writing for lawyers. He was writing for the people.
And it was cheap. It only cost 2 shillings, so everyone could afford it.
And it just exploded. It sold over 100,000 copies in just a few months. And you have to remember, that single copy would get passed around, read to families.
And read out loud in public, in taverns.
That's the real game changer. Imagine being in a crowded tavern and someone gets up and starts reading Paine's words. All those private complaints you had about taxes suddenly become a loud, public, unified demand for freedom.
It gave everyone a shared language for rebellion.
And Paine knew that to get people on board, he couldn't just criticize taxes. He had to go for the throat. He had to attack the very idea of a king.
This is the core of it right here. He doesn't just critique King George's policies, he launches this devastating attack on the entire system of monarchy.
He just tears it down. The whole idea of the divine right of kings is belief that a king was chosen by God.
Paine basically laughed at it.
He did. He argued it was ridiculous that one man should rule millions just because he was born into the right family. He kept stressing this idea that all people are born equal.
So no family has the right to rule over others forever.
It seems so obvious to us now, but back then that was a radical thing to say. Use simple logic. Like, okay, maybe the first king was legitimate, but where did he get his power?
He was probably just a successful thief or a conqueror.
Right. So why should their descendants get to rule you today? He didn't just attack the man. He exposed the whole system as being fragile and, frankly, absurd.
And he didn't hold back. He called King George III a royal brute, a hardened, sullen-tempered pharaoh.
By using that kind of direct, aggressive language, he completely changed the debate. Before, people were saying, oh, we love the king, it's his ministers who are bad.
But after Common Sense, the conversation shifted.
It became, the king himself is the problem, and we don't owe him any loyalty at all. He just severed those psychological ties.
Which then cleared the way for his second big argument.
That total independence was the only option.
For Paine, reconciliation wasn't just unlikely, it was impossible. It was a bad idea.
He gave people a very clear choice. Either you are a permanent subject to a government that's thousands of miles away and abuses you, or you break away and create your own future.
And he used this really practical geographic logic. He basically said, look at a map. America is huge. It's too big and too complex to be run by a tiny island 3,000 miles away.
The whole thing was nonsensical. Why should a continent be ruled by an island? It's like asking a full-grown adult to follow the rules of a nanny they had as a child.
It was time to grow up.
Exactly. But he didn't just frame it as a scary breakup. He offered this incredible, bold vision. He told the colonists they had the chance to start the world over again.
That's such a powerful phrase.
It is. He was saying this wasn't just about America leaving an empire. This was a chance to build a totally new kind of government. One based on liberty and the consent of the people, free from all the baggage of European tyranny and aristocracy.
He turned a terrifying act of rebellion into this glorious mission.
And he was practical, too. He didn't just use political arguments, he appealed to people's wallets. He showed merchants and farmers how independence would make them richer.
Okay, so how did that work?
Well, under the British system, there were laws, like the Navigation Acts, that forced the colonies to trade mostly with England.
Right, they'd have to sell their raw materials like lumber and tobacco to Britain at a low price.
And then Britain would manufacture goods and sell them back to the colonies at a markup. Paine said, if you're independent, you can have total trade freedom.
You can sell your grain and lumber to France, to Spain, whoever pays the most.
Which means more wealth, gold and silver flowing directly into American ports. Plus, he pointed out that being part of the British Empire meant constantly being dragged into Europe's wars.
Which was expensive, raised taxes, and was just bad for business.
So independence meant peace and profit. It was a very compelling argument.
So he's not just tearing down the old system, he's actually providing a blueprint for the new one.
Yes, and this was critical. People were worried about replacing one tyrant, the king, with 13 new local ones. So Paine laid out what a good government should be.
He called it a necessary evil.
At best, its only job is to protect the life, liberty, and property of its citizens. And if it fails at that, the citizens have the right to change it or get rid of it completely.
That sounds a lot like the Declaration of Independence.
It's the philosophical core of it. And he proposed a specific system, a representative democracy, where citizens elect people to make laws.
But he added some key protections against tyranny.
Two really important ones. First, short election cycles. He thought leaders should only serve for maybe a year before they had to face re-election.
It was so short.
To make sure they never lost touch with the average person. It would keep them accountable and stop them from becoming career politicians.
And the second protection.
A written constitution, an absolute must. He said there needed to be a clear, written document that defined the government's powers and protected individual rights. That way, even an elected government couldn't become too powerful.
It's amazing. He's basically laying out the framework for the U.S. Constitution a full decade before it was written.
He really is. Now, another huge problem at the time was that the 13 colonies didn't really trust each other. They were like 13 separate little countries.
Yeah, people from New York didn't trust people from Virginia.
Right. And that was a huge weakness. So Paine used common sense to try and build a national identity.
He pushed for unity.
He hammered it home. He said everyone, from Georgia all the way up to New Hampshire, was facing the exact same enemy and had the exact same goals.
He helped people see what they had in common instead of focusing on their differences.
And he made it clear that a united America would be so much stronger than 13 little states trying to go it alone. He even called for a continental conference for leaders to meet and plan the future.
So he was building the political structure for a new nation.
You can see the power of all this just 6 months later in the Declaration of Independence.
It's directly influenced by common sense.
Oh, massively. Leaders like Thomas Jefferson and John Adams were blown away by it. A lot of Paine's key ideas, that government gets its power from the people, that people have the right to overthrow a bad government, they're lifted almost straight into the Declaration.
So his pamphlet provided the moral and logical justification for that huge step.
It did.
Yep.
And he didn't stop there. When the war started and things got really, really tough for the Continental Army,
He started writing again.
a new series of papers called the American Crisis. These became the emotional fuel for the war. General Washington himself ordered them to be read aloud to his freezing, exhausted troops.
That's where that famous line comes from, isn't it? These are the times that try men's souls.
That's the one. His words gave them a reason to keep fighting, not just for a general, but for this profound idea of creating their own country.
And his ideas spread way beyond America.
They really did. They inspired leaders in the French Revolution and have continued to influence democratic movements all over the world. He showed that big ideas belong to everyone.
So in the end, Thomas Paine was never a president or a general. He actually became pretty controversial later in life. But his pen, his clear, powerful writing, was just absolutely essential to the birth of the United States.
His life just shows that powerful ideas, communicated clearly, can change the course of history more than any army can.
Which leads to a final thought for you to chew on. Common sense worked so well because it delivered one single, crystal-clear message that cut through everything.
Right. Today, you're hit with information from thousands of different sources, all with their own agenda. So you have to wonder, how much harder is it now for a single unifying idea based on pure common sense to break through all that noise?
Something to ponder. Good luck with your studies.